Good evening and welcome to the March 28, 2023 regular meeting of the Gaston County Board of Commissioners. My name is Chad Brown and I serve as chairman of the board as well as the commissioner from the Riverbend Township. I would like to welcome our viewers and thank Spectrum Cable and AT&T for making it possible for our citizens. For our television audience and live streaming audience, I would like to present our county commission beginning on my far right.
Alan Fraley, Cherryville Township.
I'm Ronnie Worley, South Point Township.
Good evening, I'm Kathy Cloninger, Dallas Township.
Kim Johnson, Gastonia Township.
Bob Hovis, Crowder's Mountain Township.
And Commissioner Keeger will be joining us very soon here. He's on his way. At this time, I wish you would rise for the invocation given by Commissioner Hovis and the Pledge of Allegiance given by Commissioner Cloninger.
If you would please bow with me. Gracious Father, we come before you tonight to take care of the business of Gaston County. And Father, we want to be mindful of those individuals in Mississippi who have suffered unimaginable loss due to those horrific E4 storms that came through and terrorized that location in Mississippi. Father, the emergency management forces, the rescue squads, the fire departments, and all have done a tremendous job to try to mitigate the loss of life, but still there are members of their families who they'll never see again. Father, we need to be ever mindful of our sister communities and those around us and continue to hold those in our prayers. Father, we ask for your wishes for the board and its actions tonight as we try to lead Gaston County forward. We ask that in Christ's name. Amen.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on the agenda, the commission will take citizens' comments on 3 public hearings, comments to be taken in the following issue. Zoning map change conditional district REZ-138. Zoning map change conditional district REZ-137. Incentive grant for Project Deli. Before we begin, let me outline the rules of procedure for the hearing. Citizens wishing to make comment will be recognized by the chair and then requested to step to the microphone for their comments. Citizens will state their name and address for the record. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. All questions shall be directed to the chair for response. All questions, the chair shall rule on all points of order. Do I hear a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Worley, seconded by Commissioner Hovis. All in favor? It is unanimous. We are now in public hearing. The County Commission will take citizens' comments on public hearing zoning map change conditional district REZ-138 Riverbend Preserve LLC applicant residential and commercial development area. I will now call on Ms. Jamie Kimbergaloo, Director of Planning and Zoning, Building and Development Services, will provide a brief overview. Once she has completed her comments, citizens' comments will be taken. Ms. Kimbergaloo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. REZ-23-01-06-00138 is a conditional rezoning request from the Riverbend Preserve LLC for a portion of parcel ID 202-649, 226548, and 304413. The subject parcels are located off Killian Road and have a total acreage of 324.75 acres. The applicant is requesting to conditionally rezone from the R1 Single-Family Limited Zoning District with US and SH overlays to the CD RS8 and CD C1 districts with the US and SH overlays. This first map shows that the development site is located in the northeast portion of Gaston County. The Gaston and Lincoln County line cross through the top of the development site. The applicant took the Lincoln County side of the project before Lincoln County's elected officials last year, and it was approved. There are 5 development areas for this development. Development Area A is the industrial development area and will be presented separately as case REZ-00137. This request is specifically for development areas B, C, D, and E, which are residential and commercial areas. Mr. Chairman, if it's all right with you, at this time I'd like to invite our EDC Director, Donnie Hicks, to present some background information on the case.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Hicks?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been asked to come by and give some context to the entire project because this is not just a single decision. You've got two different decisions tonight, but this entire project, including what's in Lincoln County, fits together in some unique ways. So we've been working on this parcel for around 10 years and intensively for about 5 years. It's a 900-acre parcel formerly owned by Crescent Resources, and we've been working jointly with Lincoln County to try to figure out a way to develop the property that makes sense for both counties, make sure that we're good environmental stewards, and do it in the highest and best way we possibly can. This is a major step for the county, and we want to do as good a job with it as possible. So one of the things that we worked on for a number of years was to get water and sewer there. So we did an independent study. We, the county, did an independent study to see if it made more sense to go from Mount Holly up to the site or from East Lincoln down to the site. So we had an engineer look at it, and we all agreed that the most practical way to serve it was to come from Lincoln County and let them provide the utilities. Eventually, we'd like to connect to Mount Holly, but in the interim, it made the most sense to go and let Lincoln County take care of that. That project was not funded initially, but we knew that we had to go and seek funding for that. The idea all along has been to do a development that fits together and it works in unity. So if you look at the Lincoln County rezoning, a good portion of that is industrial. Our portion is predominantly some industrial and residential. And those two things fit together in unique ways. One, the property in Lincoln County is more suitable for industrial development, and ours, because of natural constraints, topography, streams, and other things, is more conducive to residential. So we've worked for a number of years knowing that most of the industrial would locate in Lincoln County, most of the residential will be in Gaston. And so we've worked with the developer and with the county staff to make sure that those two can coexist. They're going to be able to live next to each other, and the industrial won't be hurt by the residential. We're not going to have cut-through traffic between the two. And then the residential will not have trucks driving through their neighborhoods. One of the things that we had to do when we worked on the utilities, you can't just extend that water line that far without having water usage because the water sits in the pipe and we'll have quality issues. So we have to find a way to turn that line over. So one of the things that we'll do with that is the residential will be the primary user of the water and sewer initially, and that will allow the water to be turned over so that we can keep the water quality up. So we'll be able to provide water to a location that normally we wouldn't be able to do it. I would also tell you that we have, I think, taken direction from the board in the past that you were not excited to only have the residential and give up all the industrial tax base. So Mr. Stetzer and Lincoln County's attorney and both economic development groups have been working together to create an arrangement by which we will share taxes on the industrial side once it's commenced with construction. Whatever's there today, they will always receive the value of the land as it is today. When the vertical construction starts, then we will split the taxes 50-50 for 30 years. So it's a pretty favorable split for us because the majority of the industrial land will be in Lincoln County. But for that 30-year period, we'll have a 50-50 split, and it'll provide commercial and industrial tax back to Gaston County. So we thought that is a tremendous split for us. It gives us access to market those sites with Lincoln County jointly and then receive some of the not only job benefits but also the financial benefits. When we worked on this project, I would consider this the most highly conditioned rezoning that you've ever seen. So we didn't just have the developer come to us with a prepackaged plan and say, this is what we want you to approve. Over the last couple of years, we've worked with them on a number of issues, and in every case, they have worked with us to satisfy the conditions that we wanted to place on them. So now what's before you, I think, is the highest and best use of this property. It's next to a divided 4-lane highway with a 65-mile-an-hour speed limit. The only interchange proposed on that section north of Mount Holly is right at this property. So when the state built that road, it logically set that property up for a larger scale development. And we've worked to try to achieve that and maintain a couple things. One, a tax share with Lincoln County, public utilities. We also want to ensure that we protect the environment to the maximum extent possible. And this will be covered more in the zoning, but I think it's good to note that we've taken 375 houses out of the original request. We've taken property that was normally going to be rental property, converted that to for-sale property, required additional entrances that will be discussed. We've also taken a look towards the environment because our watershed needs to be protected up there. We have 3 intakes, Mount Holly, Gastonia, and Charlotte Water. And so we've worked with a developer to create the most stringent requirements for stormwater control we've ever seen. and they've accepted those. And those are basically roughly equivalent to Mecklenburg County standards. So they've taken that, and that will be increased buffers, increased control over the stormwater in the basins. And so we think that all those measures will protect the intakes in the watershed in the area. The other thing that helps the commissioners with this being a conditional rezoning, the developer has certain use by right. So they don't need our permission to go do certain things in the property. They could do what would be normal kind of residential R8, 12,000-foot lots. They don't come to the commissioners to do that. They can get site plan approval because they have some vested rights to do that. So by doing this conditionally, we get a number of things that we wouldn't get any other way. That includes enhanced stormwater control, this tax share with Lincoln County. We get water and sewer up to that part of the county. And you get much more control over it by doing it this way. We also have preserved more land than any project that I can think of other than just a sheer conservation move. 150-acre, give or take, easement will be given to the Catawba Lands Conservancy that will match up with additional land on the eastern side of the property that's already been conserved, and almost 1,200 acres in and around the Mountain Island intakes. So we're going to have 1,500 acres of land that's been conserved. In addition to that, we have additional stream buffers, and what you'll see in the site development plan is concentrated residential development. But if you look and measure the residential development over the entire acreage, it's not a high-density development. I live in a 35-year-old neighborhood, and my neighborhood is more dense than this will be if you look at the number of units by acreage. You have to take into account the acreage that's going to be conserved. So having done all that, I think that we are delivering the best possible package that we could. If we were not to do this as a package with Lincoln County, we would have to break this up, and we would not get the same benefits from it. The only way we're getting the water and sewers from Lincoln County and having the tax share arrangement is because we're doing it as a unit, and their expectation is that we're going to do our part to make this work. So I feel like given all the work that we've put into it and all the forethought we've put into it and the conditions that are attached to it, I can't imagine that we would go back and make this project any better. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, sir. I'll now ask, I'm sorry, Ms. Kimberly, go ahead.
So the current zoning for all of the lots within the development area is R1 with US and SH overlays. The image on the right shows that the subject parcels have not been developed. The parcels were cleared as part of the timbering plan, however, no other development activity has occurred. The proposed uses for these parcels in the request are light commercial and a planned residential development. This project was originally brought to the county in 2019, however, no action was taken on the request at that time. Since its original submission, the following changes have been made to the site plan. The developer has eliminated multifamily housing units. They've also decreased from 1,100 residential units to 725 units. Enhanced water quality and stormwater measures have been added into the plan, and they have secured a new access onto Killian Road for the development area B. This is the overall site plan for the development. The proposed uses for this request are light commercial, attached single-family homes, also known as townhomes, and detached single-family homes. Because two housing types are being proposed, staff is classifying this as a planned residential development or a PRD. PRDs have supplemental regulations in the ordinance that this development proposal have been reviewed against. All planned residential development standards, or the PRDs, are being met. This slide shows a list of the requirements staff reviewed and that the site plan either meets or exceeds. So on this slide, there's asterisks next to open space, landscape and buffer requirements, and the residential building standards. All of the proposals have exceeded the requirement in the UDO. This slide outlines the areas of relief that the developer is seeking through the conditional rezoning process. Staff is supportive of the requests for the following reasons. The 6,000 square foot lot is what is considered marketable at this time, and studies have shown that cluster developments are better for stormwater and erosion control measures. The density requirement for this watershed area is also being met with the proposed lots. The proposed lot widths meet the minimum road frontage requirement for all lots in the county. For the setbacks, there's a condition that's listed on the site plan, which is the last page of the site plan, that states that the eaves must be within the building frame, which means that the setbacks, which we typically measure to the building wall and not the eaves, are going to be closer to 6 feet on the sides as opposed to 5. There's also a condition, the proposed rear yard setback is greater than what is required by the ordinance. The UDO requires all planned residential developments to be serviced by public water and a sewer system. The developer is working with Lincoln County to bring water and sewer lines into the development. The UDO also states that all PRDs and subdivisions in general have to have roads built to NCDOT standards so that they can be accepted and maintained by the DOT. This regulation has also been met. For open space in residential areas of the development, we have the following requirements and proposals. Please note that open space is defined by the ordinance as areas of publicly or privately owned natural area that is being protected for natural and cultural resources. It is not specific about open space being developable space. This slide shows what the required acreage for open space is and what's being proposed by the developer. This data has been updated in your current staff reports. Density is defined in the ordinance as a ratio that expresses the number of dwelling units per gross acre. The ratio is derived by dividing the total number of dwelling units by the total land area to be developed. These are the proposed density calculations for each of the residential areas. The overall residential density for the project as a whole is 2.49 units per acre. Because the subject parcels are located in the Mountain Island watershed, the highest density that would be approved is 3 dwelling units per acre, or 36%. The development team has met this requirement and is proposing enhanced stormwater measurements as well. For traffic, a TIA was completed in 2019 and 2020. Lincoln County and the NCDOT both accepted the study. Staff did not require a new study to be completed as the original TIA recommended improvements that were for a higher residential density and the original site plan. The proposed infrastructure improvements are greater than what could have been required if we asked the applicant to redo the study. We do have the development's traffic engineer here with us as well, if you have any questions after this presentation about traffic. This slide shows the access points to the development. Just to make a note, access point 4 on the right side of your screen has been moved in the new site plan. For schools, the developer is proposing to give $1,000 per single-family home that is built in this community. When the developer originally proposed the project, it included land for a new school. Gaston County Schools declined this offer, and the developer proposed a condition which the school system has agreed to. Please note that this is not something our staff can require. There are no requirements in the UDO that state a developer of a subdivision has to provide anything to the school system. For emergency services, in response to the concern about emergency services access, the developer has offered 1 acre of land to the county to be used for a police and/or EMS station. Gaston County Fire and GEMS and police have asked that the condition remain in the site plan. This is another condition that staff cannot require, but that the developer is giving to the county. The developer has fulfilled all of the requirements of the conditional rezoning process. The site plan has gone through 4 revisions with staff. Public information meetings were held on February 22nd and March 3rd. Comments from those in attendance were included in your staff report. The site plan was distributed to the Technical Review Committee. All comments received have been addressed in the site plan and/or the proposed conditions. This case was presented to the Planning Board at the March 6th meeting. At this meeting, the Planning Board did not recommend approval of this request, and that was a unanimous vote. A review of their findings and their vote has been included in your staff report. Staff placed 5 signs out at the property to advertise for the public information meetings, and then took those signs down and re-advertised for tonight's hearings. This map shows where the signs were placed. This map shows the properties that fall within the 200-foot buffer zone of the subject site. All of these property owners were notified via mail with information about the public information meetings and tonight's public hearing. Staff is proposing the following conditions in addition to those that are included on the last page of the site plan. The first is kind of a general condition that states all federal, state, and local codes need to be met. The second condition talks about a reduced setback from NC 16, but it'll never be less than 75 feet. The third condition is giving staff ability to waive some of the locations of the sidewalks if we find out that during the final site plan approval that the sidewalk is not in a feasible location or is going to not serve a logical purpose to the development. Condition 4 is talking about engineered and approved NCDOT plans for all mitigation infrastructure. Condition 5 would give staff the administrative relief to waive block lengths. We have a block length requirement that requires blocks to be no less than 500 feet and no greater than 800 feet. We wanted to put this in there in case some kind of waiving from that requirement is needed for infrastructure. Condition 6 is about architectural requirements for single-family homes and attached residences, that they will meet everything in section 8.1.11, but they are also going to provide an architectural package to staff once a builder has been selected for the residential development areas. The architectural package will be reviewed and approved administratively prior to the issuance of any zoning permits. Condition 7 is about a cultural resources inventory assessment that is to be conducted during the final site plan review phase. If evidence of a cemetery is produced, the developer will provide a maintenance and protection plan that is to be reviewed and approved by staff. Condition 8 is about slab-on-grade homes not being allowed for any of the residential products. Condition 9 states that a proposed and actual timbering plan will be provided to staff during the final site plan review phase. If disturbance exceeded the 100-foot buffer from top of stream bank on each side, the developer shall restore the riparian area using native species as approved by our Natural Resources Department. Condition 10 is if the environmental site survey returns any evidence of species of special concern, the developer shall follow all recommendations of the impact study and shall obtain wildlife-friendly development certification through the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. And Condition 11 is about rewording Condition 11 under the overall notes of section, the overall notes section of page RZ-5 to ensure that 2 and 10-year post-construction stormwater detention requirements as outlined by the NCDEQ Stormwater Design Manual are met. These 11 conditions would be in addition to what has been included in the list of conditions on the site plan. Conditions on the site plan include additional standards for signs, lights, architecture, and landscaping. The subject parcels are in Area 3 of the comp plan. This area is described as being unique in that there are high numbers of transportation trips made along Highway 27 and NC 16. There are pockets of rural communities located throughout the area. The comp plan does note that Area 3 has the potential for suburban development along NC Business 16. The subject parcels fall in the area that has been envisioned as suburban development. The suburban future land use plan is described as having significant single-family areas that exist around commercial pockets. Typically, this looks like residential subdivisions built around services for these communities. These centers are larger than rural centers. This development meets goals 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8 of the comprehensive land use plan. It also meets the proposed future land use for the area and the small area goals for this area. Staff finds that the application as presented meets the vision and goals of the comp plan. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation at this time. We do have representatives from Shaw Tate, as well as their engineer and traffic engineer to help answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, ma'am. At this time, are there any comments from the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kevin Vogel. I am a civil engineer with Land Design. And thank you, commissioners. I want to introduce a couple of our folks from our development team. Stuart Tate with Shaw Tate is here. Chris Deli with Childress Klein, and Randy Goddard with Design Resource Group. We appreciate the opportunity to present the Riverbend project to you for consideration. As it was said, this is a plan that's 5 years in the making. That has been through a lot of review and consultation with staff, as well as hearing and reacting to a lot of the comments we received from the public meetings. The project is a mixed-use project proposing industrial and residential uses, as well as some commercial use And as you can see, it borders with Lincoln County, and the Lincoln County section was previously approved for the industrial zoning. It has several points of access and connection to 3 accesses on Killian Road, Development Area B. It's got a dedicated access for Development Area A, which is the industrial site, as well as access back out to NC Business 16 at Kevin Lane. The project proposes 5 different development pods, with A being the industrial, B, C, and D being the residential, and E being future commercial. And as you've heard, the overall density for the project, specifically to the residential in development areas B, C, and D, is just under 2.5 dwelling units per acre, with about 725 residential units being proposed over development pods B, C, and D. And as part of the project, there are several streams, and there is an understanding of where we are in the watershed, being in the Mountain Island Lake watershed. The project proposes a significant amount of open space to be dedicated in buffers, to be dedicated in conservation districts as well. Specifically in areas A and B, which is closest to the lake and borders on those environmental streams and creeks, about 50 to 55% of the property there will be in open space, will be in dedicated buffers and conservation easements, with about 45 to 50% actually being the improved acreage for that. In C and D, a little bit farther away from the creeks and streams, that area is about 45 to 50% that's going to be in dedicated open space and buffers, and in development area E up in the commercial, that goes down to that will be mostly developed. So from an environmental standpoint, as I said, we plan on dedicating and maintaining in open space and buffers a large portion of the project, with about 175 acres going to be in a conservation easement dedicated for the Carolina Thread Trail. We understand that we are within the Mountain Island Lake watershed, and that we've got requirements, Gaston County requirements to adhere to. But we have developed a management plan, an environmental management plan, that is much more enhanced and much more protective. I'm going to go to the second one, because we've looked at this both from a during construction process and once we leave the site and we have a stormwater management with permanent controls in place. We've really addressed that very, very specifically, both for construction and for the permanent controls. And for the permanent controls, we've looked at the project, and we have focused on the treatment, the water quality or pollutant removals of the runoff for this watershed and what's going to be leaving the site. We've looked at the receiving channels, creeks and streams, so that we are not going to degrade those. And we've looked at peak control. For stormwater runoff, obviously when you build a project, you are going to increase the amount of pollutants that come off the site. You have cars, you have impervious area. That's just going to move pollutants off the site, as well as any suspended solids or intermittent denuded areas. So what we've done, those pollutants move off with what we call the first flush, or the first inch of rainfall is going to move a majority of those pollutants down and into the system, either the storm drainage system or the creeks and streams. What we have proposed was to capture all of that in best management practices, they call them. They can be rain gardens, they can be ponds, they can be infiltration basins. And we're going to design that so that we catch the runoff volume from that first inch of rainfall that's going to carry those pollutants, and we're going to hold it and we're going to treat it. We're either going to infiltrate it, put it through a filtering media, or we're going to hold it in ponds and plant those ponds so that we have nutrient uptake. And we're focused on the requirement you have is 85% TSS, so the suspended solids that may be moved through the runoff. We'll remove the suspended solids, but we've also focused on the nutrients so that we're not moving those nutrients into the downstream receiving waters. So we've enhanced the protection so that you have phosphorus removal as well to deal with the nitrogen. Secondly, we know we're going to produce some more volume. And creeks and streams, they are healthy, and they know how much water they can hold bank to bank, and that's that bank full, and that's about a 2-year design storm event. You start pushing a lot more volume in that design storm event, the creeks and streams are going to get degraded and erode because they're going to have to reform themselves and deal with that. What we've proposed is that we're going to capture all that and hold it and release it at very, very slow rates so that those receiving creeks and streams in that channel forming event are not going to be affected by that. They're not going to be degraded by those volume events. And then, of course, when you get your flooding events and the creeks and streams go out of bank and everything kind of gets up, moves, and you have peak flow rates. And to address peak flow rates and any potential flooding downstream, these facilities we're going to put in are going to have additional storage volume. So when it rains and we create more runoff, we have a place to hold that and then manage that outflow so that we meet the pre-developed release rates. So, obviously you get a wooded site, it rains out, you don't have as much water coming off of than you do a parking lot's going to push that. We're just going to hold that water back and release it at those pre-developed rates so that there's not a flooding event and there's not an increased peak flows downstream that's going to cause a problem. So that's going to be the permanent system that's in place. As well, we're going to commit to the minimum of 100-foot buffers along those creeks and streams to protect those creeks and streams. That'll be the permanent measures. That's a requirement of the project. Those controls will be designed, will be modeled, will be submitted to staff, and staff will review to make sure we're meeting those commitments. During construction, that's different. Now we're trying to deal with the fact that we've got exposed dirt, exposed land, and we've got to have to capture, intercept so that we're not moving a bunch of muddy water downstream. And what we've proposed here is something we've done very, very effectively in other projects where we've committed to standards above the minimum standards for Gaston County. And for that, we're going to install surface skimmers to dewater all our sediment basins. We'll put in sediment basins, we'll capture the runoff coming off the site, and we'll dewater those sediment basins from the top where the cleanest water is. We're going to capture and hold and treat the 25-year storm event and route that through skimmers. That is a very enhanced condition that is going to control of a 25-year storm of a very, very large storm event. And those skimmers will discharge through silt bags. So those skimmers are designed, so if we take a 25-year storm event, we hold that entire volume and then we dewater it from the top, release it very slowly. That's the cleanest water. Then we're going to put it through a silt bag. And if you've seen those things kind of blow up and they collect any remnant sediment that's going to be there. We've put a note in here that the contractor and the inspectors will work together, and if there's any areas where it needs a little bit more control, we can implement polyacrylamides, which will coagulate those sediments in those basins and help to go ahead and meet the standard we're trying to achieve. We're going to require a high hazard silt fence along all these environmental corridors. And as well as make sure that the slopes, the areas where we slope grade that have a tendency to erode or rut, we build those at more stable slopes, or we terrace them so that water has, that we can control the water coming down there. Put slope drains on them to protect those. And then as well, when we finish grading in one area and we move on to the other, we don't want to leave it. We're going to go ahead and stable it either with seed or temporary stabilization within 5 days, and which means, when it rains and that's an area that's just exposed and we're not working on it, we're going to go ahead and control that. So we have worked hard to bring the highest and best standards to both the construction controls for rainfall runoff as well as post-construction in an effort to be very environmentally sensitive in that regard. And so I actually forgot to go back one slide, but there's a slide regarding the erosion control standards we've put in. We've talked a little bit about this, but I did want to mention that the residential densities are about a little less than 2.5 dwelling units per acre as a composite for all our residential areas. In development area B, which is closest to the creeks and streams, we're down to just over 2 dwelling units per acre. C, we're about 2.7, and then in D, where we have townhomes proposed, that bumps up to 4.5. As mentioned, we are proposing 50 by 120-foot lots. But one thing we have heard and we have implemented on the project is to put a 50-foot vegetated buffer on the periphery of our project as we abut other residential areas and other developed areas. There was mention of architectural standards we have committed to. The requirement there is that the builders will have to go before Gaston County to make sure they're meeting these standards. And in regards to the type of siding treatment, no vinyls allowed. That you've got to have 2 different building materials, brick and another building material. No slab on grade. The architectural treatments of garages. All of that will have to be submitted to Gaston County, and Gaston County is going to have to review and approve those architectural standards before these houses get built. Some of the commitments for the project, again, there's a commitment to provide $1,000 to Gaston County Schools per lot. There will be an acre dedicated, an acre of land dedicated for police and EMS. Where that acre is, that'll be worked out, but the project will dedicate an acre of land for those for police and EMS. As we said, the project originally came in with about 1,100 residential units. It is down now to 725. There will be an amenity. There will have to be at least one amenity. I imagine there may be more than one. We've talked about the enhanced architectural standards for the industrial. There are controls in terms of what type of industrial will be built out there. No heavy industry or smokestacked permitted. We talked about the lot size. We've talked a lot about the environmental. Part of that is sort of a clustering strategy to maximize the amount of open space, maximize what we can, the distance we can put on those environmental corridors, and minimize or focus the development into the smallest footprint we can. Again, we've talked about the conservation easement, at about 175 acres that will be provided. And we've also heard about some opposition to some of the periphery connectivity that we've addressed, that we've taken out of the plan and we've worked through with staff. So in regards to industrial, these are some of the projects that Childress Klein has performed. in the area, and this is just a representation of the type of project and product that would be envisioned for the industrial development here. I'm going to let Randy with Design Resource Group walk through some of the traffic considerations, and I'm happy to answer questions if you all have any.
So thank you, Kevin. I'm Randy Goddard with Design Resource Group. We prepared the traffic study for both Phase 1 and Phase 2. So with being the east side, kind of the Phase 1, the initial study, and the west side, the Phase 2. We put both those traffic studies together. We started off by obviously meeting with NCDOT, Lincoln County, and Gaston County to determine the area of influence, what intersections we had to analyze. And then we stepped through, took traffic counts, and then prepared the traffic studies. They went through review by both NCDOT Congestion Management, Lincoln County, and Gaston County. So what you see here on this slide, the visual on the left is the area of influence for the Phase 1, which is the eastern part, with the two access points. Well, the one access point on NC 16 and the two additional access points is on Killian. As was previously noted, the one that's listed on here is B. That one has been shifted, so we got more separation between those access points. The other one on this slide here is the area of influence for the project that's on the west side, or the second part of the traffic study. So as noted and was touched on earlier, was that both traffic studies, NCDOT took another look at these because they were done in 2019 and 2020, and said based on the counts being pre-pandemic and also with the significant reduction in the residential trips, that they did not see a need to update either one of the studies. As a matter of fact, a couple of the examples in talking with the district said they've looked at that, and a couple of them have actually had the required mitigation drop or be less type of mitigation than what you would find in the original study. So they thought it would be best to go ahead and leave the studies the way they were, related to the Phase 1, Phase 2 being the east and the west. This here is a detail of what's been approved by NCDOT, just touching on this on the Lincoln County side with the industrial. So what this is, a signalized directional crossover. So what you've got is a signal for the left in, right out, and then the idea is that vehicles and trucks would travel north and then have a signalized location to U-turn back. So this is basically keeping the idea of an RCI, or reduced conflict intersection corridor, along 16 business. So that's what's been approved. This one might be kind of tough to read, and what it basically is showing you is all the proposed mitigation as it relates to the Phase 1 or the eastern project. So we got up top the two locations with the two proposed signals related to the industrial. Both access points on Killian to the residential will have left turn lanes in, so Killian will be widened for those turn lanes. And coming out of each one of those connections will be a left and a right turn lane. So the subdivision street connection will have a 3-lane section with 1 lane in and 2 lanes out at both those locations. In addition to that, at the other 2 study intersections, being 2 and 1 on this map, we've made an additional turn lane improvement and 2 turn lane extensions. That's what came out of the mitigation and the traffic study. This here is the mitigation with the Phase 1 that's in green, and then Phase 2 being the western part in red, layered on top of each other, touching on the same intersections that were analyzed. So the additional access on Killian west of the bridge is also going to have a left turn lane, same type of section, 2 lanes out, right and left, 1 lane in. And then there's another 2 lanes, or 2 other improvements with turn lane extensions. And then at the main access, which is the one that's opposite Old Beatty, which we called Access A, it's going to be, first of all, it's going to align with Old Beatty, is the idea for that intersection. Northbound, we're going to have a left turn lane, southbound a left turn lane, so that section is going to be widened. In addition to that, we're going to have a right turn lane into the proposed street connection, and then outbound we'll have a separate left and then a through right. So I think that really touches on everything related to the traffic study, and be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to talk from the developer? All right. If you gentlemen will just take a seat, and we will now open it up. Jamie, do you have anything else you want to recommend before you get your water?
I don't.
We will now take citizens' comments on this issue, which is zoning map change REZ-138. The first speaker will be Charlie Killian, and the second after him will be Charles Killian. So, Mr. Charles, if you just want to walk in behind him after he's through speaking, and then after that it'll be Marianne Boyles, Rodney Moore, and Allison Hopkins. You don't have to go until you see them come back, if that's okay with you guys. Mr. Killian.
My name is Charlie Killian, 1312 Killian Road. Before my 3 minutes starts, just bear with me. I was born in the area, slow talking. 1 page is all I gotta get through. So, again, my name is Charlie Killian. Our family has lived and farmed this area since the late 1700s, well before the founding of Gaston County in 1846. In the early 1900s, the acquisition of land for watershed around Mountain Island Lake was forced upon every landowner in this area. We were told not to worry. The land would either be flooded by the lake or stay untouched as watershed. The 2035 Comprehensive Land Use Plan shows a map on page 30 that Shawtate's using to justify the rezoning. If you continue reading page 106 through 108, the land use plan shows a map showing the exact same area as stage 4 critical watershed for Mountain Island Lake, which supplies water to Gastonia and numerous other cities. Over 600,000 people plus rely on Mountain Island Lake for safe, clean drinking water. The land use plan aligns perfectly with the North Carolina Division of Water Resources, which also calls this area as stage 4 critical watershed. Page 108 in the land use plan states, quote, urban development is now the chief source of sediment in the county's water bodies. It also states that the Catawba Land Conservancy has identified Mountain Island Lake as one of the highest priority areas for land conservation. This watershed, being critical for drinking water, is also prime habitat for endangered Carolina hill splitter mussel and bog turtle. Gaston County will never benefit from this development. They will lose approximately $3.26 million yearly to Lincoln County for water and sewer, and millions more in sales tax, because no one in this area will shop in Gaston County. They'll all go to Lincoln or Mecklenburg County. This will overcrowd schools, placing millions in cost to build new or update schools. To keep our area safe, fire and police will have to be added, placing millions in facility costs and salaries. Gaston County will lose millions while spending millions. The quality of life will be greatly diminished to us locals. At this point, just give us back to Lincoln County. At least we'd be under the 1 acre lot size restriction Lincoln County Commissioners voted unanimously in favor of August 1st, 2022. The staff report for this meeting is quick to call out what's greater than required, all while sneaking in 6,000 square foot lots, 50 feet wide with houses 10 feet apart. Then states by right they can place 3 homes per acre. But during the March 6th meeting we found out, as the land sits currently, the smallest lot size they can have under R1 is 30,000 square feet, or 1.4 homes per acre. Pine Valley, which is a neighboring subdivision, is 0.4 homes per acre. Kiever Estates, a higher density, 0.8 homes per acre. The majority of the homes around this area are much less. Our farm has a 0.02 home per acre. Some farms as low as 0.0048. Riverbend Preserve at its best, considering the total 324.75 acres, is 2.49 homes per acre. If you cut out the open space, it jumps to 3.1 per acre. If this stays zoned R1 using Pine Valley, which is the closest neighborhood density to the project, it could only support about 130 units versus the 725 they're asking for. If any rezoning is passed, we should rezone this area to residential low density, RLD, or 0.5 homes per acre.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Killian. Mr. Charles Killian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. As Charlie said, I'm from Killian Road, just up the road from him, 1334. We recently went in together and established Frog Level Farm, if you ever been on Killian Road. And as my father and myself and my father and his father and generations before us, we have lived on Killian Road, and the land, both sides, have been cherished, protected, and enjoyed by not only my ancestors and my family, hopefully for future generations to enjoy. And believe it or not, a lot of Gaston County residents that like to come on Killian Road, ride bikes, run, and then just enjoy a little bit of what's left of suburban country living. If this goes away, it won't be just the residents on Killian Road. It won't be just that the taxpayers are getting ripped off, because they'll never see a benefit from this type development. And as it's presented, it sounds really good for the developers. I can't see anything in the proposal that benefits one Gaston County taxpayer or resident. And I'm going to summarize most of what people are saying, because the Gaston County Planning Board did a really good job. At the last meeting, this is a statement of consistency. The members of the Planning Board, in considering the conditional rezoning case of the two properties we're talking about, the Planning Board finds, number one, this is not a reasonable request and in the public interest because of the following. The proposed plan does not represent the surrounding area and community. The developer's presentation lacked information on the potential development's impacts, as it still does. All these studies you hear about, a lot of them hadn't been done yet. The board was disappointed in the traffic mitigation efforts approved by NCDOT. There is concern about the impact of the development on the Mountain Island watershed. This request is inconsistent with the goals of the comprehensive land use plan in the area of land use, because the suburban development future land use designation is intended for single-family residential areas around commercial pockets representing standard suburban center. These findings are supported by a 6-0 no vote by the Gaston County Planning Board. I could say a lot more, but I'm sure my 3 minutes are up. But I do appreciate the Planning Board's honesty, and I hope you'll listen to your appointed Planning Board when you make your decision. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Mary Ann Boyles, please.
I'm Mary Ann Boyles, and I live in Oakmont subdivision at 326 Rollingwood Drive. I have lived there for over 40 years. So I haven't done any studies. A lot of this, what these gentlemen say, I don't quite understand all of it, but what I can tell you is the reality of living there. I live in Oakmont, and my property backs where they are proposing to put 175 houses. Already, the effect of cutting down all those woods has affected my property. I have many, many trees that fell, and they're on my property. I also have Johnson Creek running at the back of my property. Now those all those pieces of wood are laying across the creek, have stopped it up in many areas, and have caused a lot of damage back there. And this is just the beginning of what I see is going to be happening back there. Already, because of all these trees that have fallen back there on my property, I didn't put them down. It's been all the cutting and moving of equipment back there that has affected the land. So we're not only going to be affected by that, but the runoff, all of that sounds great and wonderful on paper, but we're already seeing the effects of all that. The thought about schools, the EMS, the police, they've offered all these little minimal amount of things to do. But the bottom line is, you folks are going to vote to make a decision that's going to affect all of us, affect children, and affect the population back there. So I hope you've been elected to represent us. And I might throw in, I put an email out over a month ago to every one of y'all. I never got not one response, not one. I hope that you'll consider how the effect is around that whole area. The other question I would throw out is how many of you have actually been up there and observed what it looks like? What roads look like? They are narrow. Killian Road is a narrow road. And we're talking about putting 725 houses up in that area, not only the commercial, also where they're proposing just a stop sign at Kevin Lane and Beatty Road. If you're riding south on Old Business 16, there's a knoll there. A knoll, and you're going to have all that traffic coming out at a stop sign. I can see it already, what's going to happen, especially during the rush hour in the morning and in the afternoon. So all of these things need to be considered, and I appreciate the fact that I could at least get a chance to voice a little bit of my concern. I would encourage you, before you make a decision, to come and look at the reality of where these places are. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moore.
Thank you, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Rodney Moore. I live on 717 Killian Road, right between the two entrances in Area B. So, with a proposal of over 400 houses in that area alone, right? If we average 2 cars per household, that puts around 800 cars per day right in front of my house, which is already fairly congested, especially at rush hour when people are using Killian as a cut through to get down to 16 business. So, also, if you figure additional traffic from all of the service companies that service the additional houses coming in and out of those entrances. So it affects everybody that has frontage on Killian Road, right? And what does that do to their property value, right? When you essentially create a highway in front of their house, right? So also, as Mr. Killian mentioned earlier, a lot of people use that road as a sidewalk because there are no sidewalks, so they exercise on it, they walk their dogs, and they ride bicycles on that road as well. So I obviously have concern for the amount of traffic that development will put on that road. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Allison Hopkins.
Good evening. I'm Allison Hopkins. I live at 234 Robert Keeper Road. I've actually been a resident for 30 years. Came from Mecklenburg County, so I know what's happening here. Been there, done that. I'd skip that river with the hopes that it'd never follow me, but it has. I stand here today representing not only myself, the 50 homes in my neighborhood, and every person here that's standing here in black today is here because we care. We want you to think about your UDO and your 2035 plan. In the 2035 plan, we've talked about the goals that were met. Let's talk about some that aren't being met. Your own plan states, Gaston County desires an interconnected county that enhances access to economic opportunities, maintains and increases environmental resources, and allows for planned growth and development, while keeping with the existing character of the community. Well, this community is a rural community, guys. It is. Rural community, as stated in the plan, also goes on to state, specifically, several communities, Northwest, Northeast, and Southwest, are especially concerned about maintaining their rural environment and our characteristics of our community. This is especially concerning because the big issue here is that land development is intimate in all of those. Easy access to highways, etc. The fact of the matter is, in our own plan, it states developments should occur in a manner that respects the existing rural community character. This development fails to integrate into our community, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You've heard about the goodwill. It's not going to be much. It's token at best. We've heard about the cost. all the mitigations and all those types of opportunities. But the fact of the matter is, you are talking about putting a medium to high-density development adjacent to the largest tributary of water into the Mountain Island watershed. That in itself is problematic. Then you add into fact the traffic studies. May I remind us all, Highway 16 is 4 miles in Gaston County, in that part of the county. That freeway was originally designated with the objective to be a freeway. It is not meant to have signalized locations on it. The signalized locations that are on it now are in the process of being removed. Furthermore, I would like to say, at the end of the day, your planning board got it right. It is inconsistent with our plan. It is inconsistent with our UDO. It is inconsistent with our community characteristics. So at the end of the day, I ask you, vote no. Do not approve these applications, 137 and 138, because it doesn't meet the goals and objectives of Gaston County. And in the end of the day, guys, that's what we're here for. We know we have to develop and we have to evolve, but it must maintain a strategic and valued purpose of integrating our communities, not dissecting them. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions arising from the Board of Commissioners? Commissioner Keeger.
Yeah, would y'all have, how many different styles of homes are you planning if this gets approved? I mean, would one section be different from the others?
So they're proposing 2 different types of housing types, but because they don't have a builder, there's no architectural standards set forth quite yet. That's why we built in the condition for the architectural standards being proposed during the final site plan review, and then they'll have to meet the conditions that are outlined in the UDO for the PRDs that I was explaining earlier. And then they've also kind of, on their own, have added increased architectural standards. So the garages will be paneled and framed with decorative trim. 2 different building materials shall be provided on the front facades. No vinyl siding will be allowed. And then lots will receive seed and straw, hard surface driveways, and no slab on grade.
Are you familiar with the development down Union Road, Nolan Farms? No? Brian, you can just nod your head. Is this, or Donnie, one or the other, is this going to be a similar project as far as the design of the homes, do you think?
So what I would say to that is the builder has yet to go out and find an actual, or the developer has yet to go out and find an actual builder. So it could be anything from a age-restricted community to a high-end community, and anything in between. So
Nolan Farms that's annexed by the city, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. If it were county, if we had done this in the county years ago, I'd be embarrassed of that. I really would. I think it's just an eyesore. To me, it's just like little boxes sitting out there next to one another.
So that is our intention with putting stipulations in for architectural design with no slab on grade, with no vinyl siding, and things of that nature, is to stop that look from happening.
All right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Mr. Worley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would direct this to the developer. I noticed in your plan that there's multiple access points on Killian Road. Was there any alternate access points for the residential development toward the north portion of this, or was it any alternate sites? I know I see 3 that all ingress, egress off of Killian. Was there any opportunity for doing something other than?
Thank you, Commissioner. I think I can answer that.
State your name, please.
Stuart Tate with Shaw
Thank you.
Tate Group. Yes. Early on, it was discussed to have connectivity with the industrial park and the residential. Is that what you're referring to, perhaps? Or?
Well, just alternate points. It seems like the entire residential
goes through
area,
Killian.
B, C, D, all ingress, egress off of Killian, and I don't see anything
That is
that comes back anywhere on the northern portion
Yeah,
of the
that is correct. And I think reason being on the industrial side, and Childers Klein may speak to this as well, we didn't want semis coming south and cars going north, if that made sense. So we felt like it was good to separate those two uses and have all the residential flow south.
Right.
I'll also say there's a lot of topo and a lot of streams that divide the industrial and the residential, so it's kind of a natural barrier there.
Yeah, I see some of that.
So, did that answer it?
Yeah, I think so. It does, it seems like the majority of the residential traffic will have to ingress and egress.
Yeah,
Or
yes, sir.
all of it on
That is-
Killian Road.
That is correct.
I would have a follow-up question to that. Do you have an idea about price point for these homes? I know you haven't gone out to bid yet,
Yeah,
but
it's a good question. I mean, I think given the cost of the land and the cost of building and the building restrictions we've put on ourselves and the county's agreed to, I mean, we think it's gonna be around 400,000 to 450 is probably an average for the homes being built out there. That seems to be the market. And someone else brought up the age restricted. We think there's a good chance there'd be an active adult community up there as well, so older residents. And they typically pay more and have nicer houses, so.
all right, I think that's all I have right now.
Any other commissioners? Mr. Fraley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brian, could you come back up just a minute? If I'm looking at this correct, if we don't approve this, by right, they can do 3 houses per acre approximately?
Correct.
Okay, and they're proposing a 50-foot buffer where they only have to do 20 by right.
Correct.
Is that correct? And the open space is 58 acres according to the UDO, but they're proposing 103.
Correct.
So if we turn this down, I assume they're planning on going ahead and developing by right. I don't know if I can ask that question or not. Is it okay?
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course, we can ask that question to the developer and see what their
Yeah, I mean,
their
if
plan
we
is
were
here.
to turn this down, are you gonna go ahead and do it by right? I mean, is that, Bill, is it okay if I ask that question?
It is.
Okay.
I mean, right now, that would be our plan, yes. Yes, sir. So,
All right, thank you.
Mr. Worley?
I would just have another question, Mr. Chair. And I know you talk about a total of 725 homes, and depending on the economy, what would you estimate it would take you to build out time-wise 725 homes? Is that, I realize that's economy-driven, but
I would probably guess 5 to 7 years.
okay, thank you.
I mean, assuming the economy stays where it is and things are going well, so.
Mr. Hovis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one question I'd like to ask our soil and erosion folks. If I could get Mr. Joseph Alm to please come up to the front. And I want to make sure I understand these increased measures. Gaston County has been lobbied for some time from folks with the Marine Commission about more stringent erosion control measures to be adopted by Gaston County. Mr. Alm, am I correct in what I've listened to and what I've reviewed, that this is the most stringent control measures we, Gaston County, have ever imposed on any single development?
Right. We have an ordinance that follows state standards.
Correct.
So those state standards are spelled out in the design manual that we adopt. It's the state design manual. What they're proposing, like saying, just from what I'm hearing, is measures that are more enhanced for better control for construction stormwater, which is the erosion control. And also, as they propose, it sounds like they're going to be doing post-construction as well to handle more for detention as well. We have a stormwater ordinance in place. Of course, this is in the water supply watershed as well, which has restrictions there for water supply. But it sounds like also they're going above and beyond to add 2 and 10 as one of their stipulations to this going through, is adding 2 and 10 detention, which is an additional above requirement than what the standard water supply watershed, which is basically looking at, as they describe, first flush water quality, which when you have detention added to it, that's enhanced measures as well, giving more detention of stormwater runoff from their new impervious surfaces and slower release rates as well, which will basically reduce impact to natural streams. And longer periods of detention will also help with uptake of nutrients as well in that when you detain as well, on top of doing your water quality.
And am I correct in my assumption from listening to this? This is very close to the Mecklenburg request from us to enact these in those highly impacted areas?
Yes, they look at those, like I say, Mecklenburg County has enhanced areas where
Correct.
they do, like I say, 25-year design storms. Typically it's 10-year storms, which means the frequency of a storm that occurs in a 10-year period, and it's usually the amount of rainfall that happens in a 10-year ability. Yeah, typically in a 10-year cycle. But like I say, when you do 25, you're actually capturing more water and holding it in larger basins. So that helps out as well, because once you reach that limit, you can free release it when it's a heavy storm. So if you're beyond 10, you're doing 25, you're holding it back for more. So that gives more settling. And yes, they're talking about skimmers. That's a standard that's in the design manual for erosion control. But if they put it on all their basins, that would be top water dewatering. Even for their smaller traps, they'll still have a skimmer device for better handling of turbidity. But we're looking at basically letting more settling. As you know, around here, it's a lot of clay in the area, so it takes longer for that clay to settle out when it gets stirred up. When it runs off, so that gives more time for it to settle down, skimming off the top part of the water. So those enhanced measures are typically what we'd see when they do, like you say, in Mecklenburg County or other areas, and let's say that's the more stringent than we've had in the past, because basically everything has to meet state standards, which our ordinance does, which is usually 10-year storms and lesser requirements, so they are stepping it up.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
One follow-up, please.
Keeger.
My last question, I think, Brian, if this is not approved, what would the build-out number be that they would be able to go and do, approximately?
So we actually asked the builder to put together that number because we had not seen what it would look like. So I may have to ask them if they have that actual number.
We have not done full design, full disclosure on that, but we think it'd be 400 to 450 units.
Would, and I know this is something you don't have to answer and you may not be able to, if this was denied, would the style and size of the homes increase if you built 400, other than 700 and whatever?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't know the answer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian, I know we talked about, I think there was 11 conditional uses. Is that correct? Somewhere in that range?
So the set of drawings that you have, every condition that you see on there is a condition of this development, plus the ones that Ms. Camberglu added to the end.
Want to make sure we add, and this may be, it's going to be sketchy how we, if I'm just saying if approved or not approved, how we get there for construction traffic. That it, obviously you can't take it all if it's approved to make sure it doesn't go down, but to make it visible for them to use not Killian Road and the bridging for what's happening with dump trucks. And obviously you'll have subs of paint vans and stuff, a little different story, but trying to divert all that out of that area from the long side down off of 73. Also, water cleanup for any debris that may be out on the roads from construction. I know that's part of already going to be there, but just wanted to, I don't know if we needed to add that or that is something we already have.
So I'll be perfectly honest. Whenever we add conditions to items, it's all about being able to manage those conditions. We can certainly tell the builder that we do not want them using the bridge on Killian Road for their construction traffic. However, I don't know about putting a condition into the agreement and how we would police that. So it can be something that we talk to the builder about and have them to set their construction entrance to where, tell their people to not use that, but I would be skeptical about putting that in as a condition and how I would stop them from doing that.
I understand. I just want to be recognized that
And
if that's where we were to go, that we want to make sure that we try to limit the use of that through anything over a regular commercial vehicle.
Yeah, and as far as the street, maintaining the mud and dirt and stuff from the
It's already
street,
there.
we're already on that.
Any other comments from the Board of Commissioners? Seeing none, I will now, just to recap, I will declare the public hearing closed. And to recap, the planning board unanimously recommended to disapprove. As a chairman, do I have a motion to approve this said motion?
I'll make a motion for the vote.
To approve?
No,
To,
just to vote.
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Is that
No.
the motion to
No.
either accept the planning board's unanimous disapproval or to take it as the planning board, or to, the opposite of what the planning board is saying was to be to approve this REZ-138. I'll do it the other way. I'll make the motion to approve, and that way we can see if there's a second, and we'll go from there. Is that okay with the pleasure of the board? I'll make the motion to approve this as REZ-138 with the condition and uses that have been set forth from the planning board, or from the zoning committee, and to make sure that that is where we're at with Shaw Tate being approved. Is there a second?
I'll second discussion.
Seconded by Commissioner Fraley. Are there any discussion? All in favor? All, Tom, you're just 6-1, Madam Clerk. Mr. Stetzer, will you please provide a consistency statement?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Is this 137 or 138?
138.
Mr. Chairman, this conditional rezoning is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan as it addresses key issues for citizens in the Riverfront Gaston, Northeast Gaston area that are being met. These key issues include preservation of open space, road improvements, and better connectivity to other areas of the county, increased job opportunities, maintaining the rural feel of the area, and increased commercial opportunities. This development meets the vision of the suburban development future land use, as it will create significant presence of single-family residents around commercial pockets representing a standard suburban center. It addresses Goal 3. This development meets Goal 3 of the comprehensive land use plan, as the provision of utilities from Lincoln County meets the following objectives. Target funding for utilities for strategic areas where the return on investment will be greatest. Provide utilities in underserved areas to help increase improvement momentum. Goal 4, this development meets the Goal 4 of the comprehensive land use plan, as the development of commercial spaces near residential areas meets the following objective. 1, work to create a network of walkable communities that can support each other economically. Goal 5, this development meets Goal 5 of the comprehensive land use plan, as the coordination with Lincoln County meets the following objectives. Encourage countywide partnerships to support local and regional objectives. 2, take a regional approach to improve utilities. 3, municipalities working together with Gaston County to target areas for development. Goal 7, this development meets Goal 7 of the comprehensive land use plan, as the developer applicant is proposing large buffers and protective measures for the existing natural resources on the site. A portion of the development site is also being dedicated towards the expansion of the Catawba Thread Trail. Thank you.
Thank you. The Gaston County Commission will now take citizens' comments on public hearing, zoning map change, conditional district, REZ-137, Riverbend Preserve LLC applicant, industrial development area. I will now call on Ms. Jamie Kimbergaloo, Director of Public Planning, Zoning, Building and Development Services, will provide an overview. Once she has completed her comments, citizens' comments will be taken. Ms. Kimbergaloo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. REZ-00137 is a conditional rezoning request for the industrial site of Riverbend Preserve Development. This request is for a portion of parcel ID 202649, and the site will be accessed off of NC 16. The applicant is requesting to conditionally rezone from the R1 with US and SH overlay districts to the CD I2 zoning district with the US and SH overlays. This first map shows that the request is specifically for the industrial portion of the development, which is Development Area A of the overall site plan. Because this area is part of the overall site plan, all of the information provided for the first rezoning request will apply to this one as well. This area was included in the original TIA, and all requirements of the conditional rezoning process have been met. The developer has voluntarily limited the uses that would be allowed in this area. A list of the excluded uses has been included on the site plan. Uses that have been excluded are those that tend to require 24-hour operations or have high levels of traffic associated with them. The SH overlay will also rule out some potential uses. These include manufactured goods use 2, automobile body shops, automobile repair shops, automobile towing and wrecker services, camping and recreational vehicle parks, building materials and lumber sales, amusement and sporting facilities, junkyard and salvage yards, flea markets, commercial vehicle and truck storage, outdoor storage yards, animal kennels, and auction facilities, specifically for livestock. This development area will be similar to the commercial area in that staff will review and approve each proposed building as the developer is ready to pull zoning and building permits. Access to the site will be from NC 16 on the Lincoln County side of the county line. There will not be access from the residential site to the industrial site. Residents shared concerns about the entrance to the site, but again, the only entrance to the industrial site is on Lincoln County side. Because buildings have not been proposed at this time and each will undergo its own review, the only area of relief that may be needed for the development area is addressed in this condition. A reduced setback from Highway NC 16 may be granted administratively for all industrial uses but shall never be less than 75 feet. This setback area shall be heavily landscaped or left as wooded area. All other staff recommended conditions for this development area are the same as what was recommended for the residential and commercial areas. The subject parcels are in Area 3 of the comp plan, and this area is described as being unique and that there are high numbers of transportation trips made along Highway 27 and NC 16. There are pockets of rural communities located throughout the area, and the comp plan does note that Area 3 has the potential for suburban development along NC Business 16. The subject parcels fall in the area that's been envisioned as the suburban development use. This use is described as having significant single-family areas that exist around commercial pockets. This development area meets goals 3, 5, 7, and 8 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. It also meets the proposed future land use and small area goals for this area. Staff finds that the application as presented meets the vision and goals of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. The Planning Board did not recommend approval of this request at their last meeting, and that vote was also unanimous. Mr. Chairman, this concludes my presentation.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any comments from the applicant at this time? Any citizens wishing to comment at this time? Any questions from the Board of Commissioners? Go ahead, sir.
You know my name. I'm Charlie.
Still have to repeat it.
I'll repeat it. Charlie Killian, 1312 Killian Road. I'd just like to read one statement. A little disappointed, but the commissioners literally go through and they provide a service to us communities. In their statement that they sign to uphold, I'll just read straight from it. Be responsible stewards of natural resources, including adoption of soil, erosion, sedimentation, stormwater management, and stream buffer regulations. Seek region-wide solutions to problems that are regional in character, including environmental protection and transportation. There's no environmental protection or transportation being helped with either one of these. Continue to develop and encourage joint use of assets among schools, parks, and municipal agencies with Gaston County. It's going to take way more than $1,000 per home to accommodate these kids. Over $9,000 a year per student is what Gaston County pays. You're going to be adding, what, 1,400 students possibly? I mean, if each home's, got a two-child home. So, and you're supposed to be trying to protect quality of life, farms are disappearing at a staggering rate already. What's this going to do to our area? I mean, when I get out there on a tractor going down the road and I got 1,400 people trying to get home, what am I going to do? You know, are they going to run me over? I mean, I'm not that much bigger than them. You know, I mean, we run that road every day with tractors, equipment. It's just, I'm just disappointed. No further questions.
Any questions from the Board of Commissioners at this time? Seeing none, I will declare the public hearing closed. Just to recap, the Planning Board has unanimously recommended to disapprove of this particular REZ-137 for the industrial development area. Is there a motion to approve the industrial area of REZ-137 to be made? Seeing none, I will make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Commissioner Worley. Any discussion? All in favor? All not? It is 6-1, Madam Clerk. Mr. Stetzer, will you please provide a consistency statement?
Mr. Chairman, this conditional zoning request is consistent with the comprehensive land use plan because it addresses key issues for the citizens in the Riverfront Gaston, Northeast Gaston area that are being met. These issues include preservation of open spaces, road improvements, and better connectivity to other areas of the county, increased job opportunities, maintaining the rural feel of the area, increased commercial opportunities. This development meets the vision of the suburban development future land use as it will create significant presence of single-family homes around commercial pockets representing a standard suburban center. On Goal 3, this development meets Goal 3 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan. It's a provision of utilities from Lincoln County meets the following objectives. 1, target fundings for utilities to strategic areas where the return on investment will be greatest. And 2, provide utilities in underserved areas to help increase improvement momentum. On Goal 4, this development meets Goal 4 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan as the development of commercial spaces near residential areas meets the following objective. That objective will be to set aside quality commercial areas along corridors for developers to reduce pressure on sensitive natural resource areas. As to Goal 5, this development meets Goal 5 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan as the coordination with Lincoln County meets the following objectives. 1, encourage countywide partnerships to support local and regional objectives. 2, take a regional approach to improve utilities. And 3, municipalities working together with Gaston County to target areas for development. As to Goal 7, this development meets Goal 7 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan as the developer applicant is proposing large buffers and protective measures for the existing natural resources on the site. A portion of the development site is also being dedicated towards the expansion of the Catawba Thread Trail. As to Goal 8, this development meets Goal 8 of the Comprehensive Land Use Plan as the provision of space for industrial and commercial uses in the overall development site will allow for an increase in economic development and provide new job opportunities for Gaston County residents. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. The Gaston County Commission will now take citizens' comments on public hearing to approve the Level 1 incentive grant and authorize an economic development agreement with Project Deli. Ms. Alicia Summey, EDC Director of Operation, will provide an overview. Once she has completed her comments, citizens' comments will be taken. Ms. Summey. Ms.
Thank
Summey,
you.
if you'll just hold 1 second, will everybody get out where you can conduct that over there. All right, ma'am, go right ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. The Economic Development Commission is asking for approval of a standard Level 1 incentive grant and to enter into an economic development agreement for Project Deli. Project Deli is an existing manufacturer here in the county. They've been here for 15 years and they have planned an investment of $6.9 million. That is about $2.5 million in their manufacturing plant, including warehousing, and also $3.5 million in manufacturing equipment for their research and development space. This expansion will create about 40 new jobs over the next 2 years in our county, and those average annual wage is expected to be around $45,000 a year. This grant estimate is just a 5-year grant. It's a Level 1, and total estimate with the current tax rate is expected to be about $156,000 over the next 5 years.
Thank you, ma'am. Are there any citizens wishing to comment on this issue? Seeing none, any from the Board of Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Let me close the public hearing, and motion made by Commissioner Kieger, seconded by Commissioner Hovis. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Thank you. This concludes tonight's public hearings. The next item is approval of the business agenda. Are there any revisions to the business agenda that need to be, items that need to be pulled?
Motion to approve is received, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made by Commissioner Hovis,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Kieger. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Our next item is citizens' recognition. A portion of the board's agenda is set aside for the purpose of allowing citizens the opportunity to offer comments and suggestions. The comment period is not intended to require the commission or staff to make any answers to the questions provided a response. Questions requiring a response shall be answered as soon as possible through the county manager's office. Citizens' recognition tonight will be limited to 1 hour. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. As I call your name, please step to the podium and state your name and address for the record. The first citizen signed up to speak is Mr. Jim Gallagher. I think he is left. The next one is Robert, is that Bivens? The next one will be Mark, I'm sorry, it looks like Solders?
Well, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to address the board today. My name is Robert Bevins, and my residence is in New Hope Acres at 1902 Audrey Drive in Gastonia. I'm here to speak to you, the Gaston County Board of Commissioners, regarding the recent reappraisal of my property and the shock of seeing how much the value of my property has increased since the last appraisal in 2019, and to find out how much my property taxes will increase if the city and the county retain the current tax rates. As I am sure most of the property owners in Gaston County, was not expecting a new appraisal since one had been done in 2019. So I was taken by surprise when I opened the reappraisal notification and was shocked to see how much my property value had gone up in 4 years. In 2019, the value of my property for tax purposes was raised from $137,000 to $175,350. And I thought that was a big raise. With this new appraisal for my property at 1902 Audrey Drive, it went from $175,350 to $307,800. It is a 75.53% increase from the value placed on it in 2019 to the current value from the reappraisal of 2023. I believe this is excessive. I'm asking you, because you are the ones who will make the decision that the county tax rates per $100 be reduced to help us as citizens to not be overly burdened by the increase in our property taxes. At the current tax rate, my property taxes would increase by $1,801.32, almost double my current taxes. So at $2,384, the present taxes that I pay, adding $1,800 to that gives it $4,186. Now that means I'm going to have to come up with $150 extra per month. Does that seem reasonable to you with the current economic conditions? It doesn't sound at all reasonable to me and to a great many of the citizens of this county. At 76 years of age, my wife and I are living on a very tight budget as retired people. A sizable tax increase as proposed would greatly affect our ability to cover all of our fixed expenses and the inflationary cost of food, clothing, transportation, and utilities, much less any unexpected expenses. I had an unexpected tooth expense this year of $4,000. So we never know what these unexpected expenses can be. And we also anticipate that the value of our property will decrease in the near future, which would mean that we could not sell the property for the appraised value of $307,800. So I'm asking you to lower the tax rate to a reasonable rate that will also allow you to develop a fair and equitable budget for the county. As a citizen, I'm asking you to just be fair and honest with us in your decision on this important matter, important to us.
Thank you, Mr. Bivens. Next person after Mr. Solers will be Mr. Ipock.
Hey, good evening. My name is Mark Solers. I live at 1521 Nottingham Drive in Gastonia. The comments I'm going to share this evening, I've also shared on multiple occasions for the city of Gastonia, which I also reside. First by saying I believe it's a privilege to pay taxes. It's nice to call on services and they respond in an appropriate amount of time. It's also nice to feel relatively safe here in Gastonia. But I will also say I believe the age of excess is over. I am requesting that the county budget is lowered, not only our tax rate, but also the spending that is being done here in the county. I believe we are also the underwriters for the county and as well as the municipalities that we live in, and we are also the shareholders for the county. We are out of money and we cannot afford to pay any more. Just last week, the Consumer Price Index, the CPI's numbers were released. I don't know if y'all follow those, but for the last 24 months, the people have literally been working harder to get poorer in this country, which is a strange phenomenon. Inflation is up, utilities are up, gas is up, food is up, and just this past week, I was notified that my homeowner's insurance that I've never made a claim on is also increasing. People in my neighborhood, which is a relatively older neighborhood, will lose their homes over this. My neighbor has shared that with me. She can no longer afford if the current tax rate is not lowered. This must stop now. I'm also calling on the county to cut the budget, prioritize payments such as our debts, essential services, but all things are not equal. Every election cycle, we hear items like experience, leadership, and fiscally responsible. And I'm asking on each and every one of you now to act on those claims that we have all made every election cycle. Make the tough decisions here at the county level, just like we have had to do in our own homes. I also suggest a moratorium on all county travel and to new projects. And I would also ask as just an idea of no new hiring except for essential services. Maybe in 2 or 3 years from now we can afford it, but this is not the year to increase the taxes or the budget for the county of Gastonia. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bob Ipock. And next will be Mike Tamburella.
I'm Bob Ipock. I'm a state certified residential real estate appraiser. Live here in Gastonia, 1218 Heatherlock Drive. I do not think you people are stealing money, as has been said on the internet. I don't think you're stuffing it in your back pockets. I think a couple of you would if you wouldn't get caught. But beyond that, a couple of things before I forget, and my mind is not good. I have Parkinson's. One of the things is I wish you'd quit using the word appraisal, because you are not doing an appraisal on these properties. And people say, I'm going up to the tax office and I'm going to look at my appraisal. Well, they're not going to find a 30-page appraisal like they got when they borrowed money from the bank. They're going to find maybe one little card or something. Call it a reval, call it what it is. So they're not looking for something that is not there, it's not going to be. And I like to look at things both ways. I try not to ever lean in other direction. Just a minute, the gentleman was talking about how everything has gone up. Well, the food has gone up for the jail. The gasoline's gone up for all the county cars, city cars. Electricity's gone up for y'all just like it has for me. So I understand things have gone up, okay? I think the biggest issue is you're not informing the people what this is all about. You need to come out in December or January and tell them what's coming, you know, give them time to consider a reval if they want to do one. 30 days is too short. I think I got my notice on the 27th of February, which means yesterday was the end. There's no law, because I had some people look it up, there's no law that says you can extend that 30 days. Now, it's going to cost you more money to let the Board of Equalization handle this, because these are people that you're going to have to pay that you don't have to pay when they're not doing anything, okay? These are members that you've appointed to the Board of Equalization, and for one thing, you're going to be paying them as people are lined up around the courthouse waiting on their appointment. But also, you know, there's no need to have people not understand this stuff. I would like to see you put 100 question, 200 question thing on the internet that people need to know the answers to. You know, like, nobody's been in my house. Well, nobody goes in your house to do an appraisal. How do they measure my house? How do they know what's upstairs? I've done maybe 15 reval appraisals. I have seen houses that had an upstairs that was unfinished, that was counted on the tax card as being finished, the square footage, okay? I had a woman tell me, don't include my swimming pool because I didn't get a building permit. Well, I can't do that, but anyway, let people ask questions, come up with a manual so they'll better understand, and all these crazy things that people say, and you know, I've been saying for weeks, it's not about the value, it's about the rate. And prices have gone up. I would like to see you cut back on some stuff, but that'll be another time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tamburello?
Good evening. I'm Mike Tamburella. I live at 2816 Colony Woods Drive in Gastonia. Thank you for the opportunity to address you tonight. I didn't know if I was going to make it here tonight or not. But since I am here, I also want to address the reappraisal notice that I got. My property went up 76%. I've been in Gastonia 4.5 years, and it went up 76%. That's excessive in anybody's book. Other people in Gastonia and Gaston County have seen their property go up anywhere from 50% to over 100%. At the current millage rate that is imposed by the county and the cities, all of the taxing entities, that will give you a windfall profit. It's immoral for you to steal that money, and it is stealing that money. You're not entitled to 100% increase just because the property value went up. Millage rates, property millage rates are supposed to be revenue neutral. So, I'm asking you to reduce your millage rate proportionately to the increases that the citizens have seen. A 40% decrease in your millage rate would be a start. But realistically, I don't think you're going to do that. Tonight, you just approved a huge project off of Highway 16. That's going to bring an unprecedented amount of money into your budget, into your coffers. The normal developments that are taking place in Gaston County are pouring money, extra money, into your pockets. Use it wisely. Don't put the burden on the property owners as this millage rate currently does. This reappraisal will put an undue burden. The economy is shrinking. We're headed into a recession. Mortgage rates are up. Inflation is at an all-time high. Everybody has problems meeting their budgets. You do too. I sat on your side of the table. I spent 6 years as a city councilman in the town that I lived in before I moved to Gastonia. So I understand what you face. But be realistic. You're not entitled to a 100% increase in your revenue. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to speak is Mr. Frank Moxham. Did I say that right, sir? And after that, it will be Tammy Gentry. It looks like, I'm sorry if I said it. Gonter, sorry.
My name is Frank Moxham. I live at 2987 Elder Court, Gastonia. I'm here to advocate for a reduction in the Gaston County property tax rate. The value of our home increased by 63% with the most recent revaluation. We, like many others, are on a fixed income. If the tax rate remains the same, the increase in net property tax will be a severe handicap for many homeowners. Even a 25% increase in property tax is more than many of our neighbors in Gaston County can afford. It's really important to us, your citizens in the county, that the county commissioners lower the tax rate so that we are tax neutral with the revaluation that just occurred. I realize that the county and the city have a budget to prepare. However, they should look for ways to cut costs and expenses rather than increase the budget. In our personal finances, that's why many of us, what many of us are having to do, cut expenses because of such high inflation. Our city and county governments should follow the same money management principle. Look for ways to reduce costs and expenses to stay within or reduce the current budget. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. After Ms. Gonter will be Ms. Rhonda Lynn. Is that correct?
I'm Tammy Gonter, and I live on Kinswick Circle in the Roland Park area. I live in an 850 square foot house that I sent an appeal on because the last time they came out and inspected it and did an appeal, when I did an appeal, they added 300 square feet to my house. They said it has a full basement. It's a round house on a pedestal. And so when I started looking because of the re-eval, I noticed instead of having 8 points on my house, the people that came out and did it have 11. So I'm working with that, but while I was looking at that, because of this situation, I realized there are too many people in Gaston County that trust you guys. And for me to sit here and watch what just happened with these riverbend communities, it really doesn't give me a whole lot of faith that you guys are really looking out for your constituents. It really doesn't. And it's really sad to think that I've been here 47 years. I came from Denver, Colorado. We call this our home. I've raised a son that's in the Navy, that's fighting for your guys' rights, and I expect you guys to fight for ours too. And I just don't see that happening. And I hope you will see it in your heart to listen to your constituents and say, hey, you know, because somebody called and said everybody had agreed they were going to drop it 20%. Don't play games with us. Be honest with us. Put a true evaluation in on our property, and make this a good community to live in, because Mecklenburg County is not. And Gaston County should be, and it's up to you guys to help it be that way, and I hope you do.
Thank you, ma'am. After that will be, after Ms. Lynn will be Mr. James Chandler, and then Marvin, is that Parlier? Mary, I apologize.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Lynn at 3874 Gardner Park Drive in Gastonia. I too have concern over the revaluations. There's no point in me doing an appeal because Open Door and other companies, other investors have been buying those houses last year. My property reevaluation is up 60%. And with the way the economy is right now as well, I also had a job of 13 years eliminated. Glad Spectrum can do the TV for you because they weren't able to keep me employed. After 13 years, it's a very difficult time for prices to have increased and inflation to be what it is. And then to have the straw that breaks the camel's back when you open that envelope, and there's nothing really to appeal. The comps are what they are. I do, like others have said, believe that the millage rate, the rate at which we're taxed is what can be adjusted. For me, 20%'s not going to really help as much as it needs to, and I hope that you are going to consider those things for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chandler?
Good evening. I'm Jim Chandler. I live at 1405 Laurel Lane here in Gastonia. And I want to just add my voice and my wife's voice and a few other voices that couldn't be here tonight for whatever reason, whether they feel it's going to fall on deaf ears or just didn't have the time to show up. But the tax reevaluation is a problem for most of the community. And in our particular, my wife and I's particular case, we bought our house in 2019, and our house jumped in value 82%. Some people can afford that kind of a thing. Some people can't. That's neither here nor there. What I would like to address tonight and for people to understand is that you, Gaston County Commissioners, have sole power over this. You can either reduce the tax millage rate, you can suspend a part or in whole the reevaluation. You can just not approve the reevaluation. It's entirely up to you. And it's not like the land deal that went down earlier where somebody's going to act whether you act or not. I've been battling these tax hikes for years now, and it seems to have fallen on deaf ears. I've voted for some of you I didn't vote for. I've known some of you for years. I've known of you for years. And it seems like we're here in the same situation all the time. But I appreciate you allowing me to speak tonight. I hope you do the right thing. And I'm sure that you'll probably see me again before this is over with. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Parlier?
I'm Marion Parlier. I live at 600 Torrance Drive in Gastonia. We returned here after my husband retired from the Army. We bought this house in 2015. The tax value on it was $186,000. When you redid the evaluations in 2019, it went up $103,000. And we complained to ourselves, but we were both working, and we paid the extra $120 in taxes a month. This time, from 2019 to 2023, we went up 87%. You said our house is worth $545,700. There's no way in God's green earth that we could sell the house for $600,000. Y'all are forcing people out of their homes that are on fixed incomes. This, if everything stays as it is right now, this increase is going to raise our taxes and insurance over $400 a month while we're now on a fixed income. And there's a lot of people that are in a lot worse shape than we are. It probably doesn't affect y'all because you're still young, you're still working. And I agree with what everybody said. I disagree with that it's a point of just the tax rate. It's a point of the overinflated value that you put on our properties. 87% is unreasonable. If you value our houses, our properties at that, if we can't sell them for that, then y'all should be responsible for buying them. And I know that's unrealistic, but this is an unrealistic increase that y'all put on us.
Thank you, ma'am. I want to state a few things just so everybody is aware. This board acts as a whole. It doesn't act as one individual. I did want to talk about something that the gentleman had talked about maybe doing something prior than the 30 days. 3 things that I know that we talked about were website. We put out videos in Spanish and in English. And this was back last year that we put those out. We sent staff out in every township to make sure that they did town halls with the people. Our tax director was the one who came up later to review every one of those as well. 31 public meetings since May of 2022, 3 upcoming meetings, 1 live stream that places all social media and YouTube, new tools, videos, websites that we've been trying to create the whole time we've been doing this. Appeals on video, and also have tax relief programs that are going on. So some of the things that this board has tried to do to prepare Gaston County to get ready for this, we feel like we have been trying to be excessive in the things that we do. I do like some of the things Mr. Ipock talked about that we could try to improve on and keep continuing to do. So there's a lot of differences of what has happened in this. I want everyone in Gaston County to hear this before anybody else goes and says we've stolen something, we've done something wrong. May 9th, we will set the tax rate. We have not set a tax rate to this date. And we will not set that until May 9th or until after we get a budget that is requested that we can live with. That doesn't mean that we're going to do anything that's out of the ordinary between now and May 9th, but I'll tell you this, you'll have this board, because when someone comes up and says it doesn't affect this board, it affects everyone that sits on this board. We do live in Gaston County, and we do have to pay taxes. We do have the same things that hit you guys, hit this board. So I want everybody to know we're not exempt. We're not trying to be exempt, but we will fight for every dollar that goes on in this particular reval. We see the angst of the community, but this board is willing to listen, and we've tried to make sure that we've been staunch and steadfast in the things that we're doing. We had a meeting today that we started on with the school budgeting, and then it went to the preliminary budget meetings that we're trying to have. So when someone asks, what are we doing? We're doing everything possible. Plus, I implore anybody who feels like they have been just, we will set up something to try to help everybody who feels like their rate was not. So I know that's going on. The appeals process is going to be going on for, I think now we go into the next phase of things. So once that's happened, I want everybody to feel at least comfortable that this board feels the exact same burden that you do. We're not exempt from it. And so, but the reason, there's no reason to get excited as of yet is because let us get to where we can get this rate and see where we can get it to. A lot of people have been talking about 20%. Some people have talked about different percentages of different things. At the end of the day, I can just about assure you that we're going to make sure this board works as hard as we can to be, I think 62.1 was the tax revenue neutral rate, and we will say that we'll start somewhere in the low 60s, hopefully, and work our way back to where we can get to where everybody in this town, everyone in this community feels confident that this board will fight and do everything we can to not have to worry about where people will lose homes or do anything for that. This board will fight, and I promise you, I will be the one leading the charge, and if I'm not, then you can sit up here and tell me I'm a liar, because I promise you, we're going to fight to make sure we do it. We're going to do everything we can to make sure that the spending expenditures of our budget are put into the coffers that we need. So I wanted to say that before we got away from this, but I do appreciate everyone who comes and speaks. We've tried to, if we haven't answered your questions or we haven't talked to you, a lot of you I think I have spoken to, or someone on this board has at least spoken to, because we have been inundated with several emails, calls, or whatever it may be, but we've tried to make sure that we do that. So I just want to let everybody be aware of that and how it's going and what is the actual process. May 9th, y'all can come and flood this room, and we'll be here all night if we need to be. But we don't mind being heard. We don't mind hearing what your pleas are, because this board takes it very seriously, and everybody's comments who comes to say something. And I will say this, the last thing. When you say something, we do hear it. We have hearts as well. So when someone says I steal something, I feel bad because I'm making sure that everything I do is fight for you guys. And this board will fight. So thank you. No, we were still, that was just, that was citizens' comments.
Well, that's right, she's down for
Consent agenda.
I just didn't want them to leave.
Items pulled from the consent agenda, which were none. Items added by majority were none. Appointments. Mr. Fraley.
We didn't,
None tonight, Mr. Chairman.
we didn't vote on the consent.
Oh, I didn't see that on there, but I'll go back. Hold on, ma'am. Approval of the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Hovis, seconded by Commissioner Kieger. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Man, we'll get to you. If you just wait just about 5 minutes, we'll be through with this and we'll meet afterwards. Commissioner Fraley, appointments? Commissioner Worley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I do have one appointment to the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. I would nominate Chief Stephen Zeal to the JCPC. There's a motion.
I'll second that. Is that all you have, sir?
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Mr. Cloninger?
No.
Mr. Johnson?
I have one appointment, Personnel Advisory Board, Mr. Andrew Blackman.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Kieger. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Mr. Hovis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have two. Council on Aging's Reverend Tripp Howard, and the Planning Board, Tony Marchantel.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. I have two, the Personnel Advisory Board, Reverend John McCullough, asking for reappointment.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Commissioner Worley. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. I have one full board appointment to the Equalization and Review Board. Application received from Mr. Chad Simpson as an alternate.
Motion to approve.
Motion made by, motion by
Second.
myself, seconded by Commissioner Hovis. Any discussion? All in favor? It is unanimous, Madam Clerk. Reports, Commissioner F. Fraley.
None, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Worley.
Yeah, I'll answer. None tonight.
Mr. Cloninger. Mr. Johnson.
No reports.
Mr. Hovis.
I have none tonight, sir.
Mr. Kieger.
I'll make one comment regarding the College Board meeting yesterday, and out of the 58 community colleges in North Carolina, Gaston College had the highest percentage of new enrollments in the state. And they're, one of the pitchers for the gal softball team is leading the whole nation with something like 119 strikeouts in 7-8 games.
Wow. that is
Just a little tidbit.
I'll just let it be known that my little lad threw 19 pitches yesterday, 18 strikes and 6 strikeouts and 2 winners, in case anybody was recognized. I have no reports. Madam Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two very brief items. One is to bring Chelsea Tarbush up to do the update on the appeal process. But before we get to that, Adam is down here. He's going to give just two very, very quick slides on the community calendar. Been talking with some of you about the need to shine a light on community events, having a central repository for that. We have our new website up and running, and he's going to just give you a quick view of what that looks like. Adam.
Thank you, ma'am. As Dr. Eagle mentioned, we'll make this very brief. I know it's been a long day for all of you. The new website launched last July. What it has on there is a number of different functions, but one of the things that's really important and really vital is the community calendar function. We utilize that not only for all the different public meetings that are going on, but also county-sponsored events, and then we've started outreach in the past year to the municipalities to have them place events on there as well. We really want this to be a resource for the entire community, to be able to go to the county website right there on the homepage and be able to find just about anything that's going on that's sponsored by either the county or by our local municipalities. You'll see that here. I took a screenshot of what it looks like going into April. As you can see, just about every single day, we've got different events that are going on. And one of the things that we're doing is we're really trying to do some in-person events. So our staff has been out working at some of these different events to increase awareness about the website and just about the things that we're putting out for the community. With that, I'll take any questions you might have. Thank you, ma'am.
We'll now call on Ms. Chelsea Tarbush for an update on the re-evaluation.
Thank you. So our, this is our reappraisal communication plan that we've been doing, reevaluation communication plan that we've been doing since May of last year. We've conducted 31 public meetings in different municipalities, different organizations. We have 3 upcoming public meetings that are listed on the website as well. All this information is on our website. All of our tools are on our website. We've been out there, different festivals, trying to get the word out on the reappraisal, reevaluation since May of last year. The appeal process, the informal appeal process ended yesterday. You had 30 days from the date of your reappraisal, reevaluation notice to file an appeal. The formal process opened today. You may file a formal appeal to the Board of Equalization and Review today through May the 26th. You do not have to file an informal appeal to file a formal appeal. You can file in the informal process and the formal process, so you can file it both. You can do that online. You can mail in an application if you would like, or you can call to schedule. Oh, I'm sorry. You can call to schedule a meeting. You threw me off. Sorry.
Just blame me. It's fine.
You still have another, if you disagree with the decision letter that you receive in the informal or formal process, you can still go to the Property Tax Commission in Raleigh. You do have to go through the formal process in order to appeal to the Property Tax Commission in Raleigh. As stated earlier, the informal appeal process ended yesterday. As of this morning, we had 6,289 appeals. We are still receiving mail-ins. As long as they were postmarked by March the 27th, we will still receive those. If we receive informal appeals from anyone after that date, we will contact them, see if they want to appeal during the formal process. The formal process, as stated, opens today and runs through May the 26th. Formal appeals are appeals made to the Board of Equalization and Review. That board is appointed by this board and acts independently of the tax office. The board will open or convene on April 17th to begin hearing appeals and run until all timely filed appeals are heard. We actually have 50-something meetings, 52, I believe, scheduled from April 17th to the end of August. We have anticipated at least 10,000 appeals. If you disagree with the decision made in the informal process, you may appeal to the board. If you disagree with the board's decision, you may appeal to the Property Tax Commission. You actually have another level. If you disagree with the Property Tax Commission, you can appeal to the Court of Appeals. I think we actually have one currently there. So this is a video. It's a short video of our Comper for Citizen. Will this work, Adam? Where are you at? It should be embedded.
It's not, but I've got the website pulled up.
Okay.
I'll always come prepared with a backup plan.
Thank you, sir. So the video he's about to pull up is a short video of our new software that we have given to the public so that they can pull comparable sales in their area. You can use that during your appeal process, and you can see what homes in your area have sold for.
The Gaston County Tax Office has new online tools that will make it easier for you to view your property details and compare yours to others nearby. Check out the Property Records Search and Compare tools. To get started, visit WeValueGaston2023.com. On the screen, you will see My Property Value in the left margin. This will take you to our property record search tool, where you will be able to search for any property by owner name, address, or parcel ID. When you find the property that you are searching for, there will be key information about the property's land, building, and its sales history, along with its value changes. Note, the Tax Assessment Office recommends everyone view their property to make sure the building information is up to date. Be sure to check the number of bathrooms, bedrooms, the type of heating system, attachments, and any other key details. If you discover anything incorrect, please complete the Property Data Survey under the More tab located under the map image of the property. Also, under the map image, you will find a tab with the description Comp Sales. This is a tool that, when selected, will direct you to Comper, an easy-to-use service that shows you sales in whichever area you want to search. The property you search for will be highlighted in red on the map, while the comparable sales properties, known as comps, will be marked with yellow flags. The map is also integrated with Google, which will allow you to view the street imagery by dragging and dropping the pegman on desired location. Now, let's check out the sale comparison tools. The system begins with the default distance and date range for sales. A red filter indicates that the parameters are set and active. These filters can be adjusted to search for sales based on square footage, increase the search area, search for more recent sales by adjusting the sale date range, or by property type. If your search returns too few of comparable sales, you will need to adjust your filters to allow for more sales to be viewed. Note, clicking on any of the sales on the map will highlight them in the list on the left-hand margin. Clicking on a property in the list will give you more details. To select a comparable sale, click on the Add Comp button. To view the comparable sales, click on the Comparable Sales tab. Lastly, click on the Save Comparable Sale icon to generate a PDF comparable sales report to save or print. There you will find an easy, organized way to compare the subject property with the others you choose. For more information and other resources, please visit WeValueGaston2023.com.
Chelsea, while we wait, or go ahead, I'm sorry.
You're good. Okay. So I wanted to discuss some of the tax relief programs. That was a topic of conversation tonight amongst some that are on fixed incomes. The income limits in these tax relief programs are actually handled through the state of North Carolina. That's not something that this board has any control over. Our first one is the elderly or disabled exclusion. You must be 65 years of age as of January 1st. If you're not 65, then you must be totally and permanently disabled as of January 1, and your 2022 income limit cannot exceed $33,800. Your residence must be your permanent residence, and your name must be on the property as of January 1. The second exclusion is the disabled veteran exclusion. There is no age or income requirement for this exclusion. You do have to be discharged honorably or under honorable conditions with 100% permanent total disability that is service connected, or if you're an unmarried surviving spouse of a veteran that was discharged honorably or under honorable conditions, and you've lived in your permanent residence as of January 1 and your name is on the property, then you can apply for this. The next one is not really an exemption, it's more of a tax deferment program. You must be at least 65 years of age as of January 1. If you are less than 65, you must be totally and permanently disabled as of January 1. There are two different income limits on this. Again, this is set by the state. There's currently 4 properties in Gaston County that utilize this deferment, so there's not a lot of people that actually go this route because they qualify most of the time for one of the other ones that is more of a tax relief program. But the income up to $33,800, your taxes are limited to 4% of your income. If your 2022 income is between 33,801 and 50,700. Then there's a cap of 5%. You must own and occupy your residence for 5 full years prior to the January 1st date. Your name must be on the property. If there's multiple owners, all owners must qualify and elect to the deferred taxes. And then the deferred taxes are a lien on your property. So if at any time there are audits done on these exclusion programs, so if at any time for this program, if you are found to not meet the requirements, that tax that was a lien on your property becomes a tax lien on your property, and we can bill you for the past 3 years. Here's our contact information, the different departments in our office. It's one number, 6 different options, or you can scan this QR code to go to that reappraisal website where you just saw the comper video. There's an appeal video out there and also a reappraisal video out there that was done that we've been showing throughout the community as well. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions, Mr. Albert? Seeing none, thank you for your update. Thank you for Adam. Thank you for yours on the website. Madam Manager, you through with your report?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bill?
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask the board to move into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143, 31811, subsection A3, to prevent the disclosure of confidential information and preserve matters under attorney-client privilege, including Cortez versus Womack and NAACP versus Gaston County.
You'll give me, I want to speak to this young lady for 2 seconds, and then we'll be right there. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. We are now in closed session.
It wasn't on the agenda.
into open session. No, nothing was, what's the word?
No action was
No
taken.
action was taken, that's what I'm trying to say. This concludes our meeting for tonight. Our next work session is Tuesday, April 11th at 6 p.m. here in the Harley B. Gaston Junior Public Forum Courthouse. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, please telephone our clerk, Donna S. Buff, at 704-866-3196. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Kieger, seconded by Commissioner Cloninger. All in favor? It is unanimous. Good night, Robin Hood.